Hi, it's Pete again here. I'm just coming back doing a quick follow-up on the original review I did for Batman v Superman. By now I think everyone who's watched this video has probably had time to go to see the movie themselves. It's been out over the weekend. Loads of people have gone to go and see it, despite the sort of mixed reviews it got. So I'm just going to give a quick-ish analysis of in-depth what I thought of the movie. So spoilers are ahead, full spoilers in this quick review slash analysis, whatever you want to call it. So if you haven't seen it, obviously go away, watch it, come back, watch the video later. So yeah, I'm just going to get straight into it. It starts with the beginning of Batman again. We get the origin of Batman again, which I thought was sort of unneeded, but at the same time I knew it was going to be in there somewhere. And I was like, if we have to have it in, I guess it's good to get it out of the way before the credits. I think it also set the tone very well because we definitely knew this was a Zack Snyder movie right from the off. So much slow motion, so much kind of like long shots, kind of cheesily, hammily done, over the top. If you look at how Christopher Nolan did it, or even how they did it on Gotham, which was a pretty bad show actually, but the way they did you've seen it happen so many times where you've seen Bruce Parents gets murdered by this point. It's kind of interesting to see how they do it in different ways. The one in Batman Begins, if people remember it, it was quite a not a perfunctory scene, but we didn't dwell on it really. It was like a scene that came and went. It had its place. It was done very well. It wasn't overdone. This one's very like the opposite. It's very like slow motion on everything. Each moment is drawn out. Very, very Zack Snyder style. But it also reveals something about the film which is a little disconcerting in one way, which is it's more of a Batman film really than it is a Superman one. And for some people that won't be a huge problem. And indeed, like, the things that are good about it are the Batman elements. The way Batman's been done, the way Ben Affleck plays Batman and Bruce Wayne is very, very good. All his tech's good, the fight scenes with him are good. The problem is that this really was supposed to be a Batman and a Superman film. And it fails, in my opinion, of being a decent Superman sequel. I mean, we are carrying on from Man of Steel here, and there were some really good threads that are in the film to do with Superman, but are just not gone into. Like, there's no time to go into it, and I think that's largely due to how much Batman's story gets taken up within this film. You really see it from his point of view. I think it did a great job in the very beginning from re-showing events of Man of Steel from Batman's point of view, and in a way, this is covering one thing that Marvel doesn't do so well with their universe, which is you often think when big stuff's happening in the Marvel films, you're like, well, what happened to this character? Like, I remember in Iron Man 3 thinking, where was Captain America? Where were the Avengers when this like terrorist incident was going on? Were they just having a break, having a cup of tea? Like, not that you want them just to be chucked in there, but this did a good job of making you realise where Bruce Wayne fitted into this world, because he was already established as Batman. He was already established character. He wasn't still to emerge like some of the other metahumans were later. So it gave you a good idea of where he was and what was going down, and it gave you a good grounding for why he would be pissed at Superman. Sorry, it gave you a good grounding for that, and also we cleverly used what the audience felt, because a lot of people felt the destruction of Man of Steel was too much. He didn't save enough people, even though I don't personally agree with that. But I'm going to get into that in another video when we talk about Man of Steel. But it was a very good way to sort of get the audience on point, get the audience on side with Batman. Personally, I wasn't on Batman's side throughout any of it because I, like I say, going back to Man of Steel a bit, was always on Superman's side. To me, it's just a case that he's been misunderstood. People haven't quite understood what he did or what he was trying to do or what was at stake there. I mean, if he hadn't done what he did, the whole planet would have got wiped out. So he may have killed some people unintentionally, but he saved billions of people. So to me, it's a win. Like, there's no way Batman, in that instance, if he'd been there, could have saved the world or done anything. Superman needed to be there to do that. So that's my issue. My issue with the film was that you didn't get enough from Superman's point of view to really put that across. You didn't get his emotional turmoil about what happened with Zod, about him being the last of his race. There's a couple of scenes where he did that really well. One with him, between him and Lois Lane, where she's touching his chest and she's saying this means something, pointing to the Superman symbol. And of course, that's a callback to Man of Steel when they were talking about what the symbol meant, and he said it meant hope, and he said it used to mean hope, but now it doesn't mean anything. My world's gone. This is not working. This me being Superman, people are not on my side and not managing to do this. And I personally think that's great that we're seeing a version of Superman now that's really questioning of who he is and if he's working, what he's doing is making a difference. There are certain people who are like, oh, it's a mopey Superman, oh, it's depressing, it's dour, the tone is dark and all this stuff. I don't really have a problem with the tone at all, to be honest. I think we get enough light-hearted, cheesy Superman movies already. We've had them. I mean, this is why people are like, why is it so dark? Why is it not more like the other ones? Well, we've had those. You're forgetting DC started the whole superhero movie thing. No matter what you want to say about Marvel, it's DC that got there first. We're on to like the 5th version of Batman and the 4th version of Superman. If you look to Iron Man and you look to the others, you think, well, they're more like the comics, but that's the first time you've seen Iron Man. That's the first or second time, technically, you've seen the Hulk. So it makes sense to do the origin close to the comic, but another 20 years down the road, what are we going to be doing with Iron Man? If they're still doing the same thing they're doing now, people are going to be bored and be like, oh, it's the same thing. Like what happened with Amazing Spider-Man, like they didn't make it different enough. So I think that the different take we're taking with Superman, and the slightly different one we're doing with Batman, or Batman's close to the comics, I think, is not really a bad thing. I think I want a different version of Superman. I always thought watching those movies in the 80s, they were great for what they were, but if you watch them now, you do sort of look at him and you think, you know, this guy has this, he must have some sort of inner turmoil going on, something going on, and he's always cheesing, he's always smiling, and he's always like, it was very much that ideal of men should always put a brave face on and always be this Boy Scout and always do the right thing and never really worry about whether they're doing the right thing or not. And there was an interesting point that I think, you know, Alan Moore brought up when he did Watchmen, which is like, he never understood why Superman, who had all the power in the world to do what he wanted, would just fly around saving cats out of trees and didn't sort of try and tackle bigger issues or try and use his power to basically be like, right, you over here, you're doing really bad stuff, I'm going to use my power. It didn't really go into those details of what it was to be a superhero, what that could mean for the actual world. That's what he was doing with Watchmen and Dr. Manhattan and all that stuff. And that's rubbed off on Zack Snyder doing his version of Superman, which is why I thought Man of Steel was great, because it's giving us something of a bit more detail and a more up-to-date world. We're now in a post-9/11 world, so we're not really as hopeful as we used to be. We're aware that disasters and dangerous things happen, and sometimes you don't get saved, and sometimes people do die. And I think that's exactly what Man of Steel was maybe not intentionally capturing, but that's captured the mood of the time. And I think when people look back in 5 or 10 years, it's going to be more of a historical document to see this is people's attitudes about films at the time. Very different from what you got in the 90s and the 80s, because different things are happening then. So it would have felt totally out of sync and kind of ungenuine to just make a very cheesy Superman film like we've seen before. Nowadays, you need to reinvent these characters, been around for so long, to keep it fresh and to keep people wanting to come back for it. So I don't actually have a problem with the dourness of Superman or the fact that he doesn't believe in himself as much as he should. The problem was that you just didn't get enough of him saving people or seeing him doing his regular Superman stuff. I mean, you saw quick clips of him doing it, and that was it. And I was like, where's Superman in this movie? Like, where is his screen time gone to? It's all gone to Batman, to establish Batman. And really what it needs to be was this should have been a standalone Batman, then we should have had a Man of Steel sequel, and then we should have had a Batman v Superman, because that would have been perfect, and you would have been able to have had a Batman v Superman where you perfectly had both in equal amount of time. You'd already set Batman up, you'd already set Superman up well, because there was so much with Man of Steel and other things that just, they rounded it off, but they rounded it off so quick. It's like they hit those beats, they hit those action beats you need to get the story across, but they didn't have the emotional core there. They didn't have those scenes where you need to grow and show things happening. There was one scene where he had a flashback to his dad, where his dad came and talked to him and he went off into the wilderness. More stuff like that was great. I really enjoyed that scene. It was like a good way of showing Superman's psyche and getting in his head, because he's a quiet, stoic character. He doesn't talk a lot, he doesn't emote a lot. And I think that's another good thing that they've done here. I think it's an interesting one. They can find a way to emotionally show someone's turmoil that's going on there. And it's something no one else has really brought up or talked about yet. But I really personally like what they did with that. But it's just not enough of it. I mean, I remember thinking with Man of Steel when it came out, I thought this is a good trilogy. You could have this one, Man of Steel. Second one could be bringing in Lex Luthor, him trying to turn all the people against him, which is essentially what happened here. And then I thought you could save Doomsday for a third movie, have him die at the end, like what happened here, in a third Man of Steel, and at the end that's the completion of a trilogy arc where people finally, after all this indecision about Superman, are at the point where they actually like, shit, we like Superman, we need Superman, why were we so horrible to him? And then eventually, obviously, you'd find some way to bring him back, because he's not going to get killed off forever, and then you could have a Superman that's more similar to the old ones. That's what I thought would have been a great trilogy arc, and that's kind of what's happened, except they've squeezed it into one movie. So they've got Superman being kind of saving people, you don't see much of it. You've got people still unsure about him, you know, Jesse Eisenberg, Lex Luthor manipulating people, but it's good to a point, and then it just sort of gets forgotten about. And then at the end, you do have him quickly fighting Doomsday, quickly killing him, before Doomsday's even really been established as a proper character, and looks pretty bad, to be honest. Looks like the cave troll from Lord of the Rings. And you just think, it's just too much squashed down here. Like, this would have really, really hit. I mean, for me, the scene hit quite well, as it was, but it could have been such a better moment if we'd had another movie leading into this, and spent more time with that part of it. All the Batman parts were brilliant, really well done. I don't think there's a big issue for me with how different it is from the other versions we've had. Some people say, oh, he kills people in this one, and yeah, he kind of does kill a few people, either intentionally or unintentionally, and that will be a problem for some fans who are really stuck on this aspect that Batman never kills. But if you really look at the other films in detail, uh, you'll find that he probably does indirectly or directly kill quite a few people, to be honest. Like I said, the end of Batman Begins always quite funny in this aspect of him not killing with Ra's al Ghul. Sorry, spoilers if you haven't seen Batman Begins yet, but there's a train going over the edge. Ra's al Ghul's there, Batman's there, and he goes, "Oh, I'm not going to kill you, but I don't have to save you." And he flies away, and the train goes down, and Ra's al Ghul essentially dies. So, yeah, he didn't really kill him, but really, if a train's going over the edge of somewhere and you're not helping someone out of that situation, you've killed them by not helping him. And in a way, you could almost see Superman's like that. Like the choices he makes to save people, in effect, he's killing someone else somewhere because he's not helping them. But if he's helping them, he's not helping the other person. And that did come into it in a very small way in about 2 seconds of the movie. And I think the confusion of the writing and things like that has meant that I think Chris Terrell's come in there with some great ideas, but they've just not been able to give proper breathing space because of everything else that's happening here and everything they feel they need to have in this film. So you get a little bit of that, a little bit of this questioning of why Superman is around. Do we need a Superman? And that is a great question. It never gets full room in the movie to breathe. Because after about halfway through the film, the sort of more slightly interesting intellectual part of it seems to go away completely, and it just degenerates, or gets good, and depending on your point of view, into a standard superhero film with loads of over the top action, completely silly stuff happening. Like Doomsday's so cartoonish, and it makes the whole film so unbelievably ridiculous that really that any sense of this sort of reality or sort of decent dialogue or decent ideas going on there just gets destroyed by halfway through the film. And to be honest, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go with it now. I sort of thought this would happen, and I was hoping it wouldn't. I was hoping it would be able to still keep that consistent. But I think Zack Snyder's not good at balancing that kind of stuff. I think the negative reactions he's had about how fans have reacted, he's really upset, and I feel kind of sorry for him, because I think for him, it's just not in his wheelhouse. It's not in his way of understanding. Like, to him, he's doing the very best he can to do a superhero film. For him, it's all about the visual and getting that comic book feel right and getting the action right and getting Batman right. And I think he probably thinks, what have I done wrong? This is great. But maybe it's just he doesn't get that you need emotion, you need context. The Russo brothers were going to do Captain America Civil War. They even said in a recent interview, I think, with Empire, they were like, we're setting up this conflict between two characters, but we know we need scenes to build on that. We know we need stuff to sort of, character stuff needs to be going on there. Otherwise, the fight's going to mean nothing. It's going to get boring very quick. And it's like Zack Snyder just needs to read that, and a light bulb needs to go on somewhere. Because if he does Justice League like this, it's going to be terrible. Like, he's going to have 5 characters to juggle in that movie, and it's like he needs to give them emotion. He needs to give them reasons to be who they are. He can't just have Aquaman show up, do some badass stuff, Wonder Woman do badass stuff. It's not enough. People are going to be like, what is he doing? Why is he doing it? I mean, I don't think you need a whole movie to really do that. I originally was always like, with Avengers 1, I was like, yeah, you needed those set-up movies to establish the character. And for a long time, I was like, you need a standalone movie, and then you need this team movie to get it set up. I don't actually think you do when I think about it a bit more, because more movies have come out since. It's not about a character having a whole movie or a lot of screen time. Think about how much screen time Joker has in Dark Knight. Think about how much screen time a character like Darth Vader has in the Star Wars movies. If you put it all together, I think someone said there's about 15 minutes of Darth Vader in all 3 films. That's probably a little low, but it's probably not that far off either. And you get perfectly why Darth Vader's there, why he's doing what he's doing. I don't think you need to have a whole movie to set up someone's origin. You just need a scene or some key scenes in there to establish what they're doing, why they're doing it, and have them play a really good part. I mean, one of the things that Days of Future Past did really well is it managed to streamline and get loads of characters in there. But even characters that were only in for 5 minutes, they were given such a strong part of the story that you were immediately on their side. They were united against a common cause. So even characters that just got a few minutes screen time, like in the future bits, I was totally like, you know what, you don't actually need a whole movie to set these characters up. You just need something. And Zack Snyder doesn't get that you need that something, I don't think. I think he just thinks, well, I've done it. I've done great. What's the problem? And I think he's taken it quite personally. He's quite upset. It's like he's almost like, I don't know what more you want from me. And I think really, some directors, they have strengths and weaknesses, and maybe his weakness is just he can't see that. He can't do that. A bit like with Michael Bay, like he tries his best with action explosions. He doesn't really get that you need the character bits. And Zack Snyder maybe just is like that, you know. The script for this was pretty bad, I'll be honest. I was expecting something a bit better. I mean, it starts off with kind of nonsensical, dumb dialogue, and it stays that way all the way through. He talks about, it starts with Bruce Wayne talking about diamond absolutes and absolutes, and he's saying, like, some stupid thing like, when a thing falls, it falls. Oh, it's like, when a thing's fallen, it falls, or something like that. And I was just like, yeah, what is this on about? Like, it's so oddly written, it really is, and I think partly this is why Lex Luthor version with Jesse Eisenberg didn't really bother me, because that beginning was so preposterous. The dialogue, the way it's set up, the way it starts, slow motion, like the cheesy shots of like Bruce Wayne as a kid falling down, kind of being like falling down, and then like even the opening bit that's good, like you've got the classic thing of like a little girl stood under this thing that's about to fall down, and she has to have like Bruce Wayne come in and rescue her as it falls. It's like, I know what movie we're going to get here. We're not going to get like a Chris Nolan level of decency or realism. We're going to get a really cheesy, slightly darker but cheesy over the top superhero film, and that's exactly what it is. And that's why everyone's like, "Oh, Lex Luthor was over the top. He was cheesy, and he was over the top, and he was camp." But I think, personally, I think he really went for it. And what he did is he brought a bit of humour into it where it was needed. I think the film is very, very dark, and people talk about that. But he was an eccentric, wacky character. I think there are those eccentric, wacky characters in real life that you get where you're just like, that guy's totally weird. And I think that he didn't push it too far for me, but it wasn't believable he would be that crazy. I mean, the guy can do pretty much what he wants. He's got loads and loads of money. He's got loads of power. And I think it's plausible within this world. I'm not saying if it was a Chris Nolan realistic world, but we're talking about a Zack Snyder world, which is not so realistic, really, as what we got there. I don't think it's that much of a stretch, to be honest. I did think it would be a problem. Watching some of the trailers, I was like, oh, he's all over the place, he's really cheesy. And he does have some really silly moments. But I also really liked the intention behind what he did. I think one thing that you can judge a good villain on is, do they do what they say they're going to do? Every villain has like a plan to do something. And the villains who actually get somewhere to doing it, obviously very few villains ever accomplish it, because if they accomplish it, there'd be no film, the world would end or whatever. But I've always got a bit of respect when a villain actually manages to do what they say they're going to do. Problem with Marvel villains all the time is they're like, oh, I'm going to take over the world, Ultron, I'm going to destroy all this, going to do all this stuff, and it never happens, never comes to pass, any of it. One thing I loved about Bane in Dark Knight Rises, he really got very close to doing what he was supposed to do. Like, he really did take Batman down in almost every way. He didn't quite do it, of course, but it really, like, it's good when a villain does something that they say they're going to do. And essentially, I think with Lex Luthor at the end of this film, you look at what he did do what he set out to do. Like Batman is not Batman. You know, Superman's dead at the end of the movie. He's like, ding dong, the god is dead. So he's done it. He has done some of what he wanted to do. He hasn't quite killed off Superman the way he wanted it to happen. He wanted everyone to sort of hate Superman because he killed Batman and all this sort of stuff. But I think he did. The attention behind what he did was pretty dark, and he did do it. So if a villain can do that within the narrative of the film, it gives me a bit of respect for them, because I'm like, they're not just some ineffectual dick who's like, oh, I'm going to do this, and then they never do it because the hero stops them straight away. Certain scenes with him where he was, like, he pushed Lois Lane off the roof to bring Superman down to his attention, I think that's a great thing. That's very, like, a proper version of Lex Luthor would do. And the other versions of Lex Luthor we've had too, if you look back at them now, this is like looking, you know, now in 2016, not in like 1978. Even though I love Gene Hackman, all respect to Gene Hackman, he's great, and his version of Lex is entertaining, but he's not threatening at all. Like, if you watch that first Superman movie, he just seems like a Saturday morning cartoon villain for today's standards. He's just got like this big millionaire, and he's got like one guy who works for him, and he's in this like library, and it's like always little like shack somewhere, and he always seems like the kind of guy who's playing at being a villain rather than being an actual villain. He does like test Superman a bit. That's why in Superman 2 you had Zod come in. But Lex Luthor, the original Gene Hackman performance, well, I really, really like it. When I watch it now, I'm like, he isn't actually a threatening Lex Luthor at all. I don't think that. I think Kevin Spacey was a bit more threatening than he was. But again, it was this variation on the same kind of Lex that we'd seen before. This at least was a different version. It wasn't the same as the others. Like I say, you've had two versions of, you've had essentially the same version of Lex Luthor several times. There's no harm in trying something different. And if it doesn't work, they can always bring in his dad, get Bryan Cranston for the next one or something like that. They probably will do that, to be honest, given the reaction that's been to him. Because people say, like, he's not Lex Luthor, yeah, but whatever. I think, personally, this is only me, but he really did make the film entertaining. I found he really, really went for it. He's very dedicated. He wasn't phoning it in. I don't think he was phoning it in. I know everyone says he always plays the same character, he hasn't got much range, but the dedication he had, like when people say he's like Jim Carrey's Riddler in Batman Forever. That's not necessarily that bad of a thing. He was probably one of the best things about Batman Forever because he committed to how ridiculous the character was, and it worked that way quite well. If I look at Batman Forever, I think he was probably the best thing about that movie, to be honest. So I'm not saying Lex Luthor was anything like the best thing here, but I certainly don't get the hate he's universally got, and I think I can only go off my view, I thought he did well. I thought he was a good Lex Luthor. Albeit, like I say, a different one. But again, I'm all up for different interpretations of things. Just as long as they're an actual villain and they carry through with what they say they're going to do, I don't mind too much. And in my mind, he did do that. The creation of Doomsday and things like that was pretty twisted what he was doing there. What else have I not covered yet? Lois Lane in this movie, she was probably the biggest waste of time. I mean, she's a great actress and there was some good scenes with her, but it was one of the massive casualties. They really got the feeling they didn't know what to do with her. They gave her a completely pointless story that took up way too much time at the beginning, where it was all to do with she was on this mission and then she found out that like Lex Luthor might be covering something up to frame Superman, and a good portion of the movie was devoted to this storyline, and it was one of those things where straight off the bat, like, get that out of there, get it off the film. It's just bloating the runtime. It's just giving her like an unnecessary storyline. I don't know what was going on. And again, that storyline runs out of steam too, so halfway through the movie she's got nothing to do. She's just sort of in there and kind of here and there. I know people said that with Man of Steel a little bit, and it did happen in Man of Steel 2, where they sort of ran out of things to do with her too there, but it wasn't as blatantly obvious as here. And it wasn't as much of a problem as here, because here you had so many other things going on that you needed to have. She gave some good emotional support to Clark, and their relationship was great. But again, even with that, it was rushed straight away into the movie. You're like, oh, they're in a relationship, living together. You got none of that sense of him even, what was he doing as Clark Kent? You never saw him hardly. You never saw how they really... There are two scenes that establish what their dynamic is. And at the end of the movie, you're meant to really care about them. I did, but not as much as I should have done. And only because you know that they're meant to be in love, not because of anything the film really showed you. But yeah, her whole thing was a complete waste of time, in my opinion. I don't know what they were really trying to do there. I suspect that's an overthrow from when it was just going to be maybe a Man of Steel sequel, and it wasn't going to be Batman v Superman from an older version of a script or something, and they just sort of kept it in because they're like, well, we've got Amy Adams now, she's signed on, we've got to give her something to do. Perry White was much better in this one than he was in the first one. He really got into the character. He had a little bit more to do. Again, thank God we didn't give him a storyline. He didn't need his own storyline at all, of course, but he was really good. Lawrence Fishburne did really well. On that side of things. Gal Gadot really surprised me as Wonder Woman. She was very, very good. Some people have bitched about, lines were wooden. I'm like, well, come on, the lines are not great anyway. I've already said the script is pretty bad, so it's very difficult to judge on a bad script. And to be honest, we're dealing with a director who's not greatest directing actors either. He did a good job with some people, but then you're like, how much of that is Zack Snyder direction, how much of that is just the actor? He did a good job with Ben Affleck, and Jeremy Irons was brilliant as Alfred, absolutely fantastic. But again, I'm pretty sure it's Jeremy Irons just being awesome. I think if you had Jeremy Irons in a Michael Bay film, he'd be great because he can just direct himself. He doesn't need anyone to direct him, I don't think. I might be totally wrong, obviously. I don't know what Zack Snyder's done there. So I think people judging it on the lines, it's like, well, the script for the whole movie is pretty bad, so you can't really say that. I think that what she was given to work, she did pretty well. She looked badass as Wonder when she turned up. I sort of did get a little bit of a depth, even with her, a little bit of an insight into her character at the end when she was talking about 100 years ago she walked away from men because it was too destructive, and you get a little insight there into why she's been away, what she's been doing, how long she's been around as well, because that's important to realise that she's been around for freaking ages. And how powerful she is. I think they got the power across right. I mean, she is meant to be more powerful than pretty much anyone apart from maybe Superman, but she can go toe-to-toe with anyone. And I think you did get the impression when she was fighting that she was really into it. She just loves fighting. She's an absolute badass, and that was great. They definitely, again, the badass aspects he gets spot on. I'm sure from him he's like, this is great, and yeah, it's a good version of Wonder Woman, definitely. The first version was seen as decent. And her part didn't really overstuff the movie that much. It was just... it needed to be there, and it was probably good for the amount it was there. Less than that, if she just literally turned up at the end and started fighting, I was kind of worried that might even happen. I was like, is she just going to be in for that one scene? Is that it? Are we going to see her as a normal person? We did a little bit. Like I said, all the Batman stuff was great. I think in summary, it's probably closer to a 7 than an 8. I think that 8 is due to how much I loved certain scenes, how much I wanted to love it. I'm still going to stick with my 8 because I've said that now, but really I think it is closer to a 7 if I'm in all honesty. Now, I've still not watched it a second time. I might go back a second time and really see some more in it I didn't see that first time. But I did that with Man of Steel. Like I said, this could happen with this, but I remember with episode 1 with some great footage of episode 1 when they first screened it, and Lucas afterwards is just like, oh man, there's just too much going on, and it's the editing. The problem is when you have, they were saying at the end you've got these 4 different scenes and it cuts really quick between all these different emotions, and it's really intense, and they're like, it's too intense, and he's like, well, I can't. It's all intertwined now. It's like, I can't do anything about that. All we can do is lessen the effect of it. As we all know, he didn't really do a good job of lessening the effect of it, because when it came out, everyone thought it sucked. Well, we'll not say everyone, but majority thought it sucked. And I think that that's the problem with this. I'm like, I don't know what you could do on a rewatch that wouldn't take away those basic problems of everything being edited and mashed together in such a weird way, in such a confusing way, that you could really lessen that impact. I'm interested to see the extended, like, R-rated version now, the extra half hour in there, whether that's just an extra half hour of awesomeness, which would be kind of cool, but I'm hoping it's an extra half hour with some character building stuff. Maybe that's what went on the cutting room floor, like, and now after the reception, they maybe like, let's get that back in there so people can actually understand what we were trying to do here. Because I have to think that there's whole scenes that were left out of this movie that would have made it make much more sense, but maybe just push that runtime over the top. And at the end of the day, the overriding feeling you get is this was a film that was set out to make a DC universe, not a film that was set out to be a decent film in its own right. And that is, in my opinion, pretty bad. I don't like that when we do that with movies. I think just focus on making this a great movie. Like, we will come to other DC movies. The focus should just be Batman, Superman. I don't think you should even have Doomsday or maybe even Wonder Woman in this. It should just have been Batman fighting Superman right up until the end. And at the end of that fight, the conclusion of that should have been something like Batman about to, similar to the comic, Batman about to kill Superman, saying that classic line that he has, then him just sort of something happening there, and then come to some kind of an understanding somehow. Don't ask me how. Can't write this movie in 5 minutes, but and then them just starting to become friends, starting to trust each other, maybe a sort of cheesy kind of macho hand grab thing, maybe not that, but something like that would just have given you this indication they're starting to become friends, to understand each other by the end of the movie, and that could have ended it there, and I think that was all that it really needed. The addition of Doomsday and all these other things, it's a Spider-Man 3 syndrome, classic Spider-Man 3. It's like, don't make 5 different movies in one film, make one film that's really good, and then make the 4 other movies as separate movies that people will turn up to if you make this one really good. I still don't think it's speared the DC Universe the way that Amazing Spider-Man 2 did, but it will all be dependent on box office. I think Zack Snyder over this weekend's going to be pretty nervous to see what happens, because it's not going to hit the 300 million opening weekend they wanted. It may not even hit the 200 one, and if it's below expectations, he may find himself Tuesday, like Justice League Part 1, he goes on to set, and we're like, get out of here, you're not here anymore. We're getting Ben Affleck in to direct this, or something like that. I don't think that will really happen. It's already rolling, but it's not unprecedented that has happened. I mean, look what happened with Amazing Spider-Man 2, for example. They had all these other movies planned, and they had everyone locked in to do Amazing Spider-Man 3 and Sinister 6. As soon as Amazing Spider-Man 2 just, like, got critically destroyed and didn't make as much money as they wanted, it still made a hell of a lot of money, to be honest. Still did make a lot, but they were like, they shut the whole thing down, and it really surprised me. I predicted they'd do that, but I kind of was surprised they did do it. And so I'm kind of thinking, will this happen? Will we get, like, Tuesday would be like, Justice League's been put back, we're getting a standalone Batman film, which I personally would have preferred, really, actually. After seeing Batman here, I would like a standalone Batman now. And then when Justice League Mysteriously comes around, Mysteriously Zack Snyder's been moved to a producer and Ben Affleck's directing, it could be a smart move to get Ben Affleck in to direct standalone Batman, and then if everyone loves that, like we probably will, then he jumps on and all of a sudden Zack Snyder's producing Justice League. I really don't think that's going to happen, to be honest with you. I think that the box office is going to be good enough that they won't like freak out and take him off it. But it does make me concerned that he can't do what he sets out to do with this movie. It does make me concerned that he can't balance characters and tone right. I defended Man of Steel down to the hill because I thought he did get some of that stuff right in that film. He did get the character stuff right there. But with 4 or 5 characters in this Justice League, he didn't do a good job of balancing stuff here. It could be another case of 5 minutes of this, 10 minutes of this, 5 storylines going on, like, and then they all have a fight at the end, and you're like, what the heck is going on? I really, I'm concerned. I'm very concerned for Justice League now. I am 100% behind this DC universe, but with a bit of time to mull it over, I don't know. I don't think we're going to get an Avengers, put it that way. It won't be this amazing, great movie. I hope it is. I really hope. I mean, my original hope was it's better than Avengers because all the characters I kind of think are more powerful than Avengers. You can get some really epic stuff out of there. And if Darkseid's going to be the villain and Darkseid, I think Darkseid is going to be awesome. But yeah, I just worry with Zack Snyder at the helm whether it's it's gonna do it. And also, an odd thing is Chris Terrio, who's written it, is saying he's only writing part 1. He's not writing part 2. And the writing here was, aside from the direction, the writing here was the #1 problem. 90% with movies, it's the script and the writing. Like, it's so confused, so many different things going on. I'm like, maybe he got more of a head start with Justice League because this he got thrown in kind of halfway through and there was already a script in place. Maybe if he's had a blank slate to work with for Justice League Part 1, he'll be able to write a decent, coherent script. I know in interviews with him, he's been saying how he's really, really put loads of effort into it and he's really done really well with it and he really has researched the hell out of stuff. So, you know, that could translate into something great. Anyway, I'm rambling here. I'm going on way too much about other things. But that's the end of the video. So, overall, Batman stuff great, Superman stuff pushed to the back, far too many things going on, didn't focus enough on being its own film, it spent too much time setting up other films like people kind of worried it would. I kind of hoped this would come out and completely beat Avengers and kick Marvel to the weeds, and it hasn't done that, I have to be honest, it really hasn't. Will Justice League Part 1 do that? Doubtful if Zack Snyder's going to do it. I want to believe he can do it, but then he didn't do it here, so the evidence is not in his favour at this point. Yeah, that's it. Great movie though, still got great things about it, even though I bitched a lot about it now. It's just really, the more I thought about it, the more it's really grated on me certain things, but then rewatching little bits of it, I still want to go back and watch it again. I still something about it wanting to drag me back to watching it again. So it's obviously not like a Batman and Robin level bad, it's certainly not something like that, but yeah, just a confusing mess. Beautiful, confusing mess is the best way to sum it up. So let me know what your thoughts are. If you liked it, if you hated it, if you agree with me, if you think Zack Snyder's still good to do it or not. I'm leaning to not now, having seen this and having some time to think about it. Leave some comments and obviously subscribe as well.